So I just watched Isaac Carlson of Watso videos do his news video on the Cinderella timeline, trying to basically theorize and explain the whole situation that happened there. And the main focus of it is how things kind of altered in Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, which many would consider the best Cinderella sequel, period, if not one of the best direct-to-video sequels to a Disney classic, that Disney ever put out, and even consider it the true sequel outside of Cinderella 2, which was basically a compilation of several Cinderella, of I think 3 or 4 Cinderella shorts, which at that time Disney was just kind of experimenting with, like they did Belle's Magical World, which was like, the third Beauty and the Beast movie, as essentially pilots for animated series based on the characters. However, when he talks about A Twist in Time, he does bring up some good points, especially, with the fact that when things do get restored, the fairy godmother is the only one that apparently knows about the previous lives. And she even kind of, I guess, asked if, Cinderella and Prince Charming want to go back to that. And they're even like, basically they're questioning, like, what are you talking about? So the theory that he has is the fact that when the whole situation happened, when Lady Tremaine got a hold of the wand, thanks to Anastasia, that basically the timeline that we knew from the original Cinderella had been altered to be the canon timeline that we all know now. In other words, what we saw in the first Cinderella was replaced by what we saw in Cinderella 3. Essentially everything being screwed up there, and I guess you can say amalgamated into what we got. And, it does seem like it would be a good theory. It does sound like a good theory, I should say, to go with, because of the fact that when you think about it, when you first watch the movie, when you first watch the film and everything, you would think Cinderella does have an idea of what's going on, but as we find out, she doesn't. The only things that she does remember is dancing with Prince Charming, fairy godmother, giving her opportunity to go to the ball and all that. That's what she remembers. That's what she remembers up to that point. Everything after that, thanks to Lady Tremaine's meddling, basically, became non-existent. And what we got instead is what, was given to us in Cinderella 3. Which, if I'm going to be honest, even though it felt a little bit more, patted on, if I'm going to be honest, I thought basically it was a good padding. I really do. I thought it was a good extension to kind of look at a possible what-if scenario of the situation. Because you could look at this, and Isaac basically brought it up too. You could look at this as almost like a multiverse situation. Like looking at Cinderella 3 is like a what-if multiverse deal. Like what if Lady Tremaine got a hold of the wand and did what she did? That's essentially what we got here. Because if you want to stick with what we got in the first film, and so much continued in the, I guess you could say, the sequel, which was more basically, like I said, a pilot for a potential series. If you want to look at it, if you want to still look at it as, that being the true continuity, the true canon, then Cinderella 3 just basically gives you a little bit of a bump in the road by saying, hey, what if this happened instead? In other words, it gives you that multiverse perception of this, of something that didn't happen, but hey, it could have happened. And this is what could have been the result, if you will. It's kind of similar, and I've mentioned this before as an example, to the Archie Sonic books. You see, in the Archie Sonic books, basically, in the post-rebooted version of the series, everybody, outside of Sonic and Eggman, Sonic, Eggman, and Nicole, I should say, Sonic, Eggman, and Nicole, everybody didn't know about the past lives. They didn't. But when they touched Nicole, they got those old lives restored. They got the memories brought back to them. But over time, those memories that got restored to them, including even Sonic's and Eggman's and Nicole's from the old world, were getting replaced by, events similar to what happened in the old timeline that had occurred somewhat similar, if not differently, in the new timeline. Like there were some things that kind of stayed true to what you saw in the pre-reboot run, in the post-reboot run. Pretty much they stayed somewhat the same, but there was some differences, no doubt. There's no doubt there was some differences. But as the comic kind of showcases over the duration of the post-reboot run, if you will, which was the Sonic Unleashed arc, if you will, or the loose adapted version of it, basically everybody's memories, like I said, including Sonic's and Eggman's and Nicole's, that basically remained intact, if you will, from the previous world, were getting replaced by the new memories. They were getting replaced by the new memories. Thus, whatever occurred in the past lives now had been altered had been altered basically in a way that reflect the new lives. Like Sally's, her ring blades, if you will, that she had as Mecha Sally, in the new timeline, they were given to her by Dr. LED before he took off. That's exactly what happened. If you read Spark of Life, which is one of the best Sonic Universe stories out there, in my opinion, she basically explains that she got the rings thanks to Dr. LED, who's an old family friend and an old friend of her father's. It's also implied and not implied, but it's also shown that in this timeline, she is given Nicole, by Dr. LED. She doesn't end up getting Nicole because, she came from the future as described in the pre-reboot issues of the comic, nor is she given Nicole thanks to her father as described, as hinted at and described in the cartoon. No, here she is given Nicole by Dr. LED. So yes, she ends up getting Nicole, but she doesn't get her in her portable form, though, as she does, like I said, in the other, incarnations, the comics and the cartoon. Nor does she get her ring blades thanks to being roboticized and weaponized. So some things do change, and sometimes they change for the better. I mean, we find out that Nicole basically manifests her own body, when Sally's a little younger. Like maybe I'd say a year or two preceding the events in the post-reboot run. That's how Nicole comes to be. And it's also implied that, Lupe meeting up with the Freedom Fighters didn't happen the way it did in the cartoon, which was adapted into a flashback story in the comics. No, it's implied that Lupe of the Wolfpack knew of the Freedom Fighters since they were kids. They were cubs, and they fought alongside each other during the early days. The point that I'm getting at here when it comes to Cinderella is the fact that essentially, all the events that led up to that one moment happened, but everything else got erased or replaced, if you will. Everything got erased and replaced. That's pretty much the similarity there. Instead of Cinderella, having the other glass slipper and presenting it to the Duke who fits it on a foot, no. It takes Gus, it takes Jock, it takes the animals, the rodent, the mice, if you will, the mice and the birds, to communicate, I should say, to the prince, hey, we got something to show you and tell you, and they end up giving him the proof that, yeah, Anastasia was not the one you danced with, it was Cinderella. Because here's the other glass slipper. So a lot of things did get rewritten in a way. Like when the prince proposes her to be married to him, it happens on a boat when he goes to find her that she's going to be shipped off on. So you have all these situations, you have all these different, situations changing up a lot, all because things were altered because someone messed with the timeline to want to get it their way. Again, this happened, a similar thing happened, like I said, in the Archie books. Sonic tried to restore the timeline, like the, fairy godmother even suggested doing at the end of Cinderella 3. He tried to restore it. Eggman, like Lady Tremaine earlier in the movie, decides to mess with the timeline, or at least cause it to get altered in a way to where, things do turn out for the better in the end, in both cases, both Cinderella's case in Twist in Time and in the Archie Sonic books. Everything turns out, better in the long run, but it's because of the villain's, manipulation, the meddling, their determination to have things the way they want, to have ultimate power, that causes a lot of things to change, and thus cause a lot of memories that even those that don't need to have something like, let's say, Nicole, or someone like Nicole restore the memories, from the past world, even those like a Sonic and a Sonic and an Eggman and Nicole have those memories slowly being replaced by the new memories of the new world, because of the similarity that they share with the old one. I mean, even Bunny Rabbit's story of how she became half cybernetic was altered to the point that it wasn't due to a portable roboticizer. No, it was due to the fact that she had suffered, very life-threatening injuries, that the only way to save her was to replace her legs and arm. That was it. And by basically altering it to be like that, it sort of alters also something else that happened. Because we know in the Sonic Girls Super Special issue, it's that issue where she gets her new limbs, because her old robotic limbs are basically fighting in a battle with her organic, structure, and whether or not to take, whether or not they want to be more in control or not. And that if she doesn't do something, she could potentially die. So, what happens? Nate Morgan, along with Uncle Chuck, they basically say, okay, we got an idea, and along with Uncle Chuck and Rotor, give her new cybernetic, sleeker limbs, arm and legs. And that's good. That's good. One, it's more, I guess you could say, stylish, and appealing if you're trying to make her like the true sex symbol of the book. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is the similarity, the callback that the rewritten version of her origin of getting those robotic limbs does, is it calls back to that moment, but it rewrites it in a way to where the moment is identical and similar, but different, if you will. So yeah, essentially in the end, basically, essentially in the end, what happened here, and again, the reason I bring up these comparisons is what happened in Cinderella kind of had a similar situation. Like I said, certain moments still remained as they were. Cinderella knew about knew the truth, like, hey, this isn't supposed to happen the way it's supposed to. She knew the truth, but over time, the memories of her past life got replaced. They got changed and altered to be basically more reflective of her new life. That's what happened. Similar to, like I said, what was going on with the Sonic characters in post-Archie Sonic 252 and onward. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the similarities between the two? I know it was kind of an unexpected way to do a comparison, but what are your thoughts? And what did you think about the Cinderella Tristan timeline little twist as well, to where, as Isaac puts it, you could look at it as either a what-if story, like, hey, it's not canon to the first movie or the first two movies, at all, or what are your thoughts on it possibly being canon, but basically, the time... Sorry about that, but like I said, let me know what your thoughts are on, both scenarios. Again, I know it's a strange way to do a comparison, but let me know what your thoughts are. Do you agree with Isaac Carlson on, looking at it from a multiverse perspective. Like, you could look at it as a what if deal, like non-canon, like asking the question of what if this would happen and all that, while keeping the original intact? Or do you look at it as basically being canon and kind of being basically the fact that the only thing that's changed was, what happened afterwards and how we got to it and everything? What are your thoughts on that? And do you think there are strong similarities to, as strange as it is, to what I mentioned about the Archie Sonic book? Do you think there are strange similarities there to where how the characters in that story had their memories altered and everything and changed and slowly replaced, old world memories replaced by the new ones? What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comment section, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the videos. Oh, also support me at BW Roses at support me, I should say, at BW Roses Discussions on all your favorite audio podcast platforms except for Pandora. Also check me out at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get here on YouTube. Also check me out at patreon.com/BW Roses for the $1, $3 tier, at deviantart.com/BVW1979, and at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2, and at Cash App at BW Roses98. But guys, let me also click on the icon, merchandise icon on the end screen in the upper left hand corner for merchandise you can't get anywhere else at my Teespring store. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are, and until next time, I am out.